Micah Parsons didn't like that. This is what rejection and envy look like. This is some clown show stuff. And then a clown emoji.
Yeah.
And then we probably should have ended it. No. DeMarcus Lawrence then has to weigh in. Calling me a clown won't change the fact that I told the truth. Maybe if you spent less time tweeting and more time winning, I wouldn't have left. Oh my goodness gracious. Nick, you want to start it? This is just a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a one-way. I think Micah was accurate and honest, and DeMarcus Lawrence was unnecessarily rude, for lack of a better term, to a team that had treated him well, and then dishonest about why they didn't win. So, to me, this is not a hard. What was a bigger reason the Cowboys underachieved the last few years? Micah's social media use, or one of their highest paid players not being anything like the player he was when he got his contract? Last year he got hurt, fine. But this is a player in DeMarcus Lawrence who has 2 contract years because they franchise tagged him a couple times before giving him the big deal, had 25 sacks in those 2 years, and in the 6 years since has had 27. And where Micah's correct also, where it says jealousy or envy, whatever it is, this money was not available to DeMarcus Lawrence from Dallas. And if his family's still there and his home's still there, he's acting like I left because I wanted the best chance to win a Super Bowl with Seattle. Yeah, when I think he left because Seattle offered him money Dallas wouldn't. So I have no problem with what Micah said, Jeff.
I have no problem in either direction. I mean, look, Lawrence is probably upset. He spent 10 years, I think, in Dallas.
Yeah.
He was discarded, right? Your point about the money is absolutely right. If they would have paid him that money, he would have stayed in Dallas, obviously. They didn't do enough to win. They had some playoff teams, but not enough to get to where I'm sure he thought the organization could be. We talked yesterday about them not doing anything to get better for the last couple of years. I'm sure he feels that way. And then Parsons is right. To the point you made, it's not my fault we're losing. But I will say the older players that did not grow up in the generation where players actively use social media, they will always use that as an excuse why players don't play well, whether it's right or wrong. Because Lawrence was drafted in 2014. He didn't grow up in an era where the players now all have podcasts. They all tweet a bunch. I grew up in an era where, tweeting was frowned upon, right? Sharing your emotions. Every year when I played, I have social media for a while, I would tweet the same stuff every game. We tried really hard. Go Giants. That's just what you did.
I would have given that
the players now, the players now are just that they grew up in this era. Parsons grew up using social media. He grew up wanting to do podcasts, wanting to do media. Older players sometimes view that as a negative when you lose. When you win, it's fine. When you lose, players like Lawrence will take a shot at him for doing that. Whether it's right or wrong, that's just the way older players feel about it.
I just feel like it shows a lack of... I'm not going to read too much into it, but DeMarcus Lawrence was kind of in that same tier that I was talking about the other day about NBA guys, where you're paid like a superstar. When you're awesome, you get love. And when you no-show, people are like, why didn't Micah do more? And, kind of the Goldilocks zone of money without necessarily the criticism. And the idea, I think it is a lack of self-awareness. We're like, never going to win in Dallas. When one of the, not the primary, not even the secondary reason or whatever, they didn't win over the last 5 years is many of their highest paid players didn't quite live up to their contracts. Right. And DeMarcus Lawrence was one of the primary offenders of that. Maybe it was more because of injury than anything else, but that is what happened.
You don't put this into the same bucket of evidence of the tours and the bucket of former Cowboys players looking back at their tenure with the Cowboys and saying, you know what? That's not an environment I didn't win there, and it's partly the environment, and I don't see that environment being conducive to winning.
I might put it in that same bucket. My point is, if Zach Martin says it, then I'm like, okay, man, you did everything you could. You more than lived up to your end of the deal. It might all be true. It is, to me, a bad messenger when within that same bucket of the tours and Jerry or whatever is a bucket of, man, guys get paid and then their production trails off massively, a la a bunch of receivers they've had. It hasn't happened to CD, Zeke Elliott, DeMarcus Lawrence, like a bunch of linebackers too. Van Der Esch, Jalen Smith got hurt. Like that's the other problem Dallas has, and he was a part of it. And so I just think I don't know. I'm not a big fan of, maybe this is like maybe the short version is, I appreciate loyalty. And even if you have moved on in the NFL, that's fine. Taking a shot at a team,
Sure.
when you leave, when they treated you right and paid you well, I think is poor form.
I think that's fair. I am also a believer in mental energy as a finite resource
For Micah?
for everybody
Well,
on
this
the
year,
planet.
this time last year, he was sumo wrestling. That's got to be more. That's physical energy.
I mean, maybe, but just like I don't see great players doing this.
Well, you do, Micah. Micah's a great player. He's a great player.
I don't see great successful players doing this. Jalen Hurts
A.J. Brown does quite a bit.
and Jalen Hurts keeps it
That's
so
quarterback.
locked in.
That's quarterback.
Okay.
Go. Sorry.
I think the younger players that grew up in the era of using social media differently than the older players, it's always going to be something that we have to get used to. And as the younger players now move up and to become veterans and whatnot, the norm will be what Micah Parsons does: podcasting, tweeting through things. I mean, he's tweeting thoughts about other teams during NFL free, which used to be like a no-no. You would never. I would never in my career tweet about another team's free agent.
He's talking about the Niners. He's like, that rookie quarterback contract window's over, baby. He's out here grinding.
It's unwise.
He wants to sit here with us
It's
and talk about football.
unwise.
Yeah.
Got a podcast, got a solo podcast, like you, really, doing your own thing. Diana Rossini, breaking news. Nick's favorite story. Bengals have been very motivated to extend their superstar wide receivers. Significant progress has been made with both T and Jamar, the latter of whom, Jamar, received his first offer from the team during the Combine, expecting the duo to receive over $70 million per year combined. So we'll take a gander at what that breaks down to.
40 for Jamar and 30 for T. That's what I think it would. That's what I think it would be.
Seems like a lot of money.
Yeah, listen, if they get this done, then I gotta own it, classic category 3 about them and T. Higgins, because I have been, for multiple years, saying I think they should trade T. Higgins because they obviously are not going to pay both Jamar and T. Higgins. So I will end up being wrong about that. But the reason I thought that is because it is such a bad idea, I didn't think they would do it. I think this is a bad idea. I think that when you had as effective of an offense as you are likely to ever have in Joe Burrow's career moving forward last year, and you missed the playoffs in an expanded field, and Bo Nix and the Broncos got in, and Russell Wilson and the Steelers got in because they had complete teams, I think this is a misuse of your resources. Now, if all of a sudden I thought the Bengals were going to take a page out of the Eagles playbook, which is like, you know what? These next 5 years, we're going to put a ton on the credit card. We're going to restructure, you know what I mean? We're going to do void years and really go for it and kind of have a larger salary cap than everyone else, then I'd be fine with it. But Mike Brown's not doing that. So this money is going to come from money they could have been spending on the defense, and so I just think it's a mistake.
The reason why the Eagles paying Smith and Brown work is because they have rookies on defense. Sorry, not rookies. They have young players on rookie contracts on defense that are all-stars, right? They have Carter and Smith, and they have
The two kids they drafted now in
Davis,
the secondary.
DeGene, Mitchell. Like, they're able to pay the wide receivers. Other teams that pay 2 wide receivers don't win.
Right.
But the Eagles win because of the young pieces around. Now, the Bengals have to hope. They've drafted, I think, like 8 defensive players the last 3 or 4 years. They have to hope those guys become superstars. If you pay the wide receivers that much money, you have to draft and develop like the Chiefs have done and like the Eagles have done. That's the only other option. So if they can't do that, this will be a failure. And so far, they haven't done it yet. Now, that's giving them grace because they're young guys on defense, still have to grow. But I don't like paying both wide receivers. I think that's a lot of resources to that position. When your quarterback is that good, You can get a
shouldn't have
5th-round
to.
wide receiver. Like, you can go get a wide receiver
I think
any point in the
Yoshi
draft.
I think Yoshi Voss is awesome.
He would.
played
Well,
well
that's
last
just
year.
because he'd instantly be the best player on the Patriots offense. But,
100%.
But
I
he
love
is
him.
good. I agree with you. He is
track star too. I like
We
Yeah.
just saw that we've seen like in every year now for the last 4 years, like a 5th-round draft pick, a wide receiver, become one of the best in the NFL. Like, the Bengals could let T walk and find someone else and spend the money on defense and probably be just as good or better because their defense is better.
I do like the idea, for all the criticism we probably gave the Bengals front office, that it seemed like, do you get a text?
What I thought it was breaking news
This is
about
this new generation.
No,
right?
this is. I swear to you, I was like, did this actually
think-
just break? So I just looked. It was not a Diana Rossini tweet. That is what it was. Your phone rang to start the show.
Yeah, it was my doctor because I'm old.
Go ahead, as you were saying. Go ahead. Sorry.
They are listening to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has publicly put it out. I think there's a way to keep everybody together. I want to keep everybody together. We thought it was a little bit of just maybe Joe just talking to a cloud, but it seems like it's going to work, and they are listening to him.
Well, I mean, yes, I agree with that. I don't think it's smart. And I just don't think that, I think Jeff's point that there is not really proof of concept on this is correct. Like, another team that tried is the Dolphins.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Bill
The
and
Dolphins
Waddle, yeah.
paid Tyreek and Waddle. And by the way, one of the things the Eagles did when they paid both receivers is paid Devontae so early that he's actually kind of on a bargain
cheaper
for
deal,
how
yeah.
good, you know what I mean, for how good he is. They weren't paying top market for both guys. And so there's just a lot of this that I think is foolish given the year we just saw. Like, if this all had happened 1 year ago,
Yep.
where it was like, man, Super Bowl, 3-point AFC championship game loss, and then season loss to Joe Burrow injury.
Yep.
We want to have a shot at all these guys being together. Screw it, let's do it. But this last season happened. They were all together. They were, except for T at the very beginning of the year, they were healthy basically all of them all year long. They all had awesome years. The team was no good.
I don't think players should be in charge of personnel decisions. Like, I'm glad. It's okay for Joe Burrow to say, like, I want those guys back. I don't think teams should listen to players when it comes to that stuff. Players, we play. We have friends in the team, of course. We want guys back. But the part about being a general manager that is hard, obviously, is making those decisions without emotion, right? Tyreek Hill, bye. No, did they call Patrick Mahomes beforehand? Maybe, maybe not. But I don't think they asked him about it.
Yeah,
Like,
the one personnel thing they asked Mahomes about on the record was oddly, love you, Patrick, but it's true, the worst first-round pick they've made since he's
Clyde,
been there,
yeah, Clyde
which was
was
Clyde,
yeah.
the running back. And I like Clyde as well. He dealt with some personal stuff.
Yeah.
But that was famously, the Chiefs were, coming off the Super Bowl, kind of high on their own supply, and they were like, what do who do you like here? They ended up drafting a running back who didn't really hit.
Yeah.
Like, historically, it doesn't work great.
Correct.
Okay. I like it, actually.
You like continuity.
Yeah. I told you to draft Jonathan Taylor. If Mahomes was watching the show back then, you would have had Jonathan Taylor. Could have won the Super Bowl.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.